Mr. Means. I received word that you would not need Ms. Vallow to appear at this pretrial conference. Is that correct?
She chose not to appear, Your Honor.
All right, the so-called Doomsday Cult Mom, Lori Vallow No-Show, not appearing in court on the Zoom call for her case today. Now, what you may or may not know is that Lori Vallow No-Show has more than one case out there. So this was for the other case, the one where her husband is not a co-defendant with her. So she chose not to show up on screen for this one for whatever reason. But let's get to the bottom of what's happening. What is the latest in the case? Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who's been covering this thing. It's like a year now that we've been covering this story, Chanley. So what did we just see? What was happening in court today? And explain to folks what this other case is all about.
Yeah, the misdemeanor case out of Madison County, Idaho, sort of isn't in the spotlight a lot because her conspiracy charges with her husband, Chad Daybell, are taking place in neighboring Fremont County, Idaho. Now, these misdemeanors are still pending, though, and today was a pretrial conference hearing, and the original jury trial for these misdemeanors was set for later this month, January 25th. But today, during a brief hearing, less than 5 minutes long, where Lori chose not to appear from the Madison County Jail, they moved that date to August. Her felony trial is in July with her husband. This misdemeanor trial is August 30th. The new pretrial conference date will be August 17th. And just to remind our viewers, she's facing misdemeanor resisting, obstructing officers, criminal solicitation to commit a crime, and contempt of court. Those three felonies there in Madison County. Again, her not appearing today, but again, she may be appearing this Wednesday.
All right, let's talk about Wednesday because that's her other case where she is a defendant with her husband, Chad Daybell. And her and her husband want the prosecutor booted off the case. What's going on here?
They do. There is a hearing on Wednesday to disqualify Special Prosecutor Rob Wood. Now, this motion was made before the new year, last month in December, and now finally it's going to come to a hearing. And as of right now, Vinny, this hearing is open to the public. There was a remote hearing notice that was filed, and it says it's presumed public unless the judge enters an order sealing this hearing. So we're expecting on Wednesday this to be streamed. There should be witnesses called. The defense is the moving party. We expect this issue to really unfold. In fact, let's give our viewers a little bit more of a background about how we got here. Let's watch.
Did you have a meeting with Mr. Wood prior to testifying today?
Yes.
Did he tell you what to say on the stand?
No.
Did he coach you in any way?
No.
Did he?
The suggestion that lead prosecutor Rob Wood coached or influenced testimony was a theme that emerged in Chad Daybell's preliminary hearing last August. Here's defense attorney John Pryor trying to make that point while cross-examining Melanie Gibb, a key witness for the state.
Did he ask you to testify in a certain manner or wear a certain amount of clothes, a certain way?
No.
He didn't tell you anything.
We talked about a lot of things.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get into. It wasn't the weather, was it, ma'am?
No.
It was about how and what you were going to say in this hearing today, correct?
He asked me questions and I gave him answers.
Do you know whether or not that conversation was recorded or not?
I have no idea.
Now, several months later, both Chad and his wife Lori are fighting to remove the prosecutor in their joint trial, accusing him of misconduct and witness tampering. The driving force is an 18-minute audio recording of a meeting Wood had with Lori's biological sister, Summer Shiflett. The two met in October as part of the investigation into the deaths of Lori's children. While the recording in question is not public, it may become public during a hearing to disqualify the prosecutor.
Motions to remove a prosecutor for a conflict of interest and alleged misconduct are very rarely filed, at least in Idaho. And this one seems to have some significant substance to it, or at least potential for significant substance to it.
The defense also claims prosecutorial misconduct during an interview with Lori's former sister-in-law, Zulema Pastines. The prosecutor's office calls the allegations meritless. Wood alleges the recording was made without his knowledge and consent and does not include the entirety of the conversations. He asserts they are incomplete and or possibly edited. Such recordings in Arizona, where the meetings took place, are not illegal. But the Arizona Attorney Ethics Advisory Committee frowns on the practice. It views non-consensual recorded conversations by attorneys as unethical.
It's impossible to tell yet, without that detailed set of facts, how many legs these kinds of things will have. But to remove a prosecutor in the case is not typically done, and there will be a reasonably high burden of proof required by the judge.
As a response to the motions to disqualify, Wood asked for an expedited hearing. Vinny, remember that took place on December 18th. It was closed to the public. In fact, the judge swiftly sealed a lot of the documents, supporting documents to these motions to disqualify from the defense. So we shall see what will come of that. But in that December 18th hearing, there were some key rulings that stem from that. That's for background to help our viewers get some context for what they're going to hear probably on Wednesday. And so some of those takeaways for that from that disqualification hearing on December 18th was that the judge denied the state's temporary judicial protection order. They wanted to keep this from the media. Well, the judge denied that, but he did maintain the order to seal over certain documents. And the judge denied the defense motion for a temporary removal. So the defense wanted Wood removed from the case altogether until the judge made a decision whether or not he would be disqualified. That was denied. And then on January 6th, that originally was supposed to be a court date for this huge motion to change venue. Well, during that December 18th hearing, the judge moved out the motion to change venue to some other indeterminate date and put in place this motion to disqualify instead, where the defense will put on evidence and the judge will decide whether or not Rob Wood stays on the case.
Well, we know we're dealing with two very aggressive criminal defense attorneys out there, but what exactly is the standard and the burden that the defendants will have in this case in order to get him bumped off the case? I mean, what do they have to prove and what are the standards for this?
Yeah, it's a tough standard there in the state of Idaho. That's why this type of motion is so rare in, well, really anywhere to get someone kicked off of the case. They have to prove misconduct, not only the misconduct, Vinny, but they also have to show that the improper behavior affected the case, created some unfairness, or inhibits the defendant's right to a fair trial. I spoke to a prosecutor there in Idaho, Daniel Clark. Let's listen.
The standard for the judge to review in this is whether there's a compelling need, and that if there's any conduct that has deprived a defendant of the right to a fair trial, they've got to show some conflict has arisen from the prosecutor's conduct to be able to remove him. Generally, they refer to it as very strict scrutiny, and they do that for the obvious reason. This ability, or the allowance of this type of thing should be fairly frowned upon and should not be weaponized in any particular case.
So generally, a compelling need is something that the defense can only get from the prosecutor, something that only Rob Wood could say would have a compelling need for them to call him as a witness. So that's sort of the standard that the prosecutor right there is talking about that we'll probably see on Wednesday. And also strict scrutiny, Vinny, that's probably the highest standard a judge could look at something in determining the conduct of any of the parties involved in any case. So again, really high hurdle here for the defense. And again, on Wednesday, we're expecting, if this remains open to the public, to hear that actual recording that is apparently full of all of this prosecutorial misconduct. And in addition, both Lori and Chad are supposed to appear.
Okay. I know you spoke to a lot of experts today trying to get a real feel for what's going on here. Did they say anything about the ethical implications of all of this and how all of this could eventually impact the case against Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's important to remember that here the decision totally lies within the discretion of this trial court judge. So he has a lot of power when he's looking at the facts, the evidence, the recording, when he's listening to this, and looking at the Idaho rules of ethics. That will be center stage from both sides. I'm sure we'll hear from both sides interpretations of the ethical rules, and especially for a prosecutor. As you know, Vinny, we're both former prosecutors. There's a special set of rules and ethics for prosecutors. In fact, I spoke to Dave Leroy there. He's a former prosecutor, former Idaho Attorney General, 49 years practicing attorney. Let's listen to him explain it.
Prosecutor has an overarching duty to see that justice is done. Prosecutor must be very even-handed in complying with the lawyer responsibilities when acting as a policeman or an investigator. He also has the duty under another code of professional responsibility provision applicable to every lawyer to be very truthful and careful in interacting with third-party witnesses. There is no proper ground or common measuring stick because these allegations are so rarely made. So it'll be entirely up, in my opinion, to the judge's sound discretion, measuring what is alleged against what is proved, against what is required under the Code of Professional Responsibility to give this defendant a fair trial.
So on Wednesday, once the judge hears the evidence, we'll likely hear a decision if he decides the defense has met that really tough burden and disqualify Special Prosecutor Rob Wood. The case will likely go to the Idaho Attorney General's office. Another special prosecutor would be assigned to the case, and what that ultimately means is more delays in Idaho.
Which is fascinating because a delay means a longer time that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell stay in jail waiting for their day in court. So there's a bit of irony associated with that. But wow, it is game on. Wednesday is the day for that. We'll have much, much more here on Court TV as things develop out there in Idaho. Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.